Welcome to the Vault Excel. Thank you for joining me. This is extensive commentary pertaining to the trial of Adam Montgomery. This is a three-part live. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Big Angie, 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. First question. Did Kayla Montgomery abuse Harmony and the other children? I posed this question because of the obvious. A child was unalived in front of her in her presence while she was in the car, allegedly in the passenger seat of that Sebring. And it is an obvious question and one that many should ponder on. Did she abuse the child while she was in her care with Adam Montgomery? Because it's obvious that he abused Kayla. I won't doubt that he abused the children. And I do believe he abused this child early on. He got care of her in February of 2019. We hear him speaking in an interrogation with two detectives before getting arrested on the charge of interference of custody of the child, that his uncle had left that house around March or April of 2019, and they had some disagreement about lights and different things, shutting off of lights. So what I had to ask myself, if that uncle left in the spring of 2019, because you don't really know what to believe coming out of the mouth of Adam, DHS went into that home in July of 2019. So that means a few months went by before they showed up. And allegedly, they showed up after getting a call from the uncle. We later learned that it was the uncle who was the anonymous caller during trial. So if we are to believe commentary from Adam that the uncle left spring of 2019, then that means he waited months to call to say the child had a black eye. Okay? So how would he know she had a black eye if he was already gone by July? See, there's so many things to a story. And as I've always told you, a version is just that, a version. So by the time the worker gets there, sees the red eye, scratch on the eye, was that from a child or somebody else, or swelling had gone down from hitting the child? So you don't know what to believe. That's why I always tell you have to go back into commentary to try to get the gist of the story. Who's telling the truth? So if the uncle left in spring, when did he see the black eye? Because everybody was moving out of this home and left Kayla and Adam behind with the small children. So what is the truth to that allegation? Here I show you photographs in Google of the trial and these people. You don't know what to believe. Did this woman abuse this child as well? Was there preferential treatment by the father towards Harmony Montgomery? We've learned in many cases of child abuse, child neglect, verbal abuse, the parent doesn't like the child for whatever reason. So was this also the case? That he really didn't like his daughter. That when he got custody of her, he saw something in her, reminded him of the mother, whatever relationship they had, didn't have, because I don't think they really had a relationship. I think it was possibly just sexual, and a baby was conceived. Did he treat the girl child differently than his other children by Kayla Montgomery? I've also asked that question as well. And my third question for this live stream, why did Adam Montgomery adopt her? We learned in that same interview with detectives, and they're questioning him about the whereabouts of his said child. He basically says that Crystal didn't want the child. That's why he went to court to get the child. Now, many people are possibly pondering and bickering back and forth. How did he get the child? He has an extensive criminal record. And it's obvious that he went to court and didn't show proof of residency, a job, background check. I believe he showed up to court The judge saw that someone was there related to the child and gave him custody. And that was February of 2019 that he gained custody. So now we have to ask that question. Did this woman really want her child? Because we hear that she also had 2 court dates. One pertaining to her baby son and then Harmony. And naturally, she couldn't be in 2 places at the same time. But maybe this is the first time that we actually get some truth from Adam Montgomery. Because as they say, in the lies, there is a little bit of the truth. And perhaps he told the truth, that Crystal did not want the girl child. Because I'm going to bring you content on that later about the child being in the custody of a foster care family 3 times. She was only 5. So you have to use deduction. Why would this child keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth into the same family 3 times? That shows that no one wanted her for whatever reason, whether it be a foster family or the biological mother. And sadly, she went into care of Adam Montgomery, who is an addict and could not care for her because he did not keep gainful employment. We did hear that Kayla worked at one time, but we know that by the time they were homeless and living in that car in the winter of 2019, neither one had a job and both were actively using narcotics with small children in their care briefly. It's a lot to ponder. Too many eyes visually saw abuse and did nothing. Everyone hearing of the abuse but did nothing. And some may be applauding the uncle, but I am not, because only because he should have called the police. And I have said this many times during my live streams pertaining to children. When you see abuse, such as someone has punched a child, beat a child, verbally abusing a child, snatching a child up, neglecting a child, not feeding a child, why are you waiting to call DHS and go through this extensive asking of questions and this and that? Because let me tell you, they ask you 1,000 questions. Who are you? How do you know the person? What's their name? Blah, blah, blah. You could have called the police. See, it's the police's job to ascertain the situation and decide if they want to call Department of Human Services. And if they were living foul in that house, as we heard a young lady from the shelter say she saw how they were living in that apartment, something should have been done, but it wasn't. They were the last Mohicans left in that house, and I doubt that that house was in fit condition. I'd even made a comment to someone the other night. I said, I bet they didn't even have water. And then we later hear, allegedly, they didn't even have water in the house. The house was trashed. But yet a social worker found it fit for the child to stay in his custody. But let Adam tell it in that same interrogation with detectives that DHS was coming to the house every day. So what's the truth? Photos don't lie. Look at both of them. Mother, father. Smaller Kayla. Looks drugged out. Tattooed up dad. Nothing wrong with tattoos, of course. But sometimes they tell the story as well. You don't really know what's the truth. Because as I said, everything's about a version. And we've learned in this case, too many people had eyes on the child and could have done more. We have this bland testimony from a DHS worker who didn't even seem in tune with his own testimony during court, which is bothersome to me. And what I told myself, there was no emotion in the testimony because there was no emotion in handling the case of Harmony Montgomery. We go from July of 19 to January of 2020. That's a big time gap, 6 months. It makes no sense. But he says, excuse me, Adam says they were there every day at that house, July of 2019. That's what he told the police officers during his interrogation about his daughter. They were there every day, bothering me, harassing me. So is that true? that police were coming to the house because he had an altercation with the uncle. Somebody called the police. They found out they didn't have lights on. The place was unfit. So what was the truth? Because they stayed in that house up until being evicted in November. So we know it can't be true that the state removed any children, because the children were allegedly in the care of these two when they got evicted from that said house in November 2019, right around Thanksgiving, and they were sleeping in their car. We get verification from the drug dealer that he let them sleep in his car for 2 days, brought them food, so on and so forth. And I believe that. So DHS did not remove any children. So then when you fast forward to January 20, you have to ask, what's the worker trying to close out the case? Because naturally, if he was still going to the house and trying to find them months later, which that wouldn't make any sense either, from July to November, they weren't there. Couldn't reach them, they didn't keep phones. That's something else that's odd and strange to me. Neither one kept the phone. Found it funny when Kayla was trying to use that transportation driver's phone and he snatched it out of the hand of Kayla, so on and so forth, or the woman. It's all bizarre to me. Two people not keeping a phone. Why not? You have children and you don't have a phone? And most young people want a phone because they like to be on social media. See, there's so many questions that's bizarre. But this would prove he was controlling. He wanted to be in control of everything. He didn't care about anything but drugs. She as well. F a phone. We don't need a phone. Who cares about a cell phone? We're fly by night, seat of our pants. We don't care about anything. Did this woman abuse this girl child or her other children? Because one would question is the fact that she stayed on this donkey ride with him while he was carrying around a dead kid. So you have to just say to yourself, you're this fearful, you're this frightful, you didn't care about yourself, you didn't care about your children. You obviously didn't care about this girl child because you never told authorities that he murdered the child. So one would question, well, did she abuse the child as well? I think it's a fair question. And then you have to say, also, well, how much fear could there have been when you had ample enough time to run, hide, ask to go into witness protection, anything, but you did not. And even during trial, we hear she still misses him, wanted one last hoorah with him. So sex was just as important as the drugs. And possibly that relationship with Adam was only built on sex. And I think that was the same with Crystal. And then you also have to use deduction. And what's obvious, it can't be anything anyway when a person is beating you up and all you all are doing is getting high and living from pillar to post, living in a house that's trashed, different people, nobody's paying their way, nobody's helping grandma out. It was a recipe for disaster. And I've said that many times during my lives as well. A bunch of people living together, it's not a good idea. And when you look at the fact that these people were drug addicts, the rest is self-explanatory. And I won't doubt that the other people that lived in the house also used narcotics because they kind of go hand in hand. Birds of a feather. So did this woman abuse this girl child? Did she abuse her other children? Did he also abuse the other kids? One would say yes, he did, because he's abusive. He's violent, violent history, violent past, 21 arrest records to date in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. And he also beat Kayla Montgomery. So why not beat the children? But was there preferential treatment of the girl child? Ah, interesting. Because you have to ask yourself, he went and got the child, went to court, obviously didn't show any receipts to how he was living, job, proof of income, proof of residency, background check wasn't done. So then he goes and gets this kid, gets custody of her February 19. Allegations the uncle moved out that spring, so that one would wonder how would he have seen a black eye? Maybe he's getting the time wrong or deliberately lying to cops. I think he was abusing her shortly after getting her. And I also posed that question on my community board about Harmony covering the mouth of one of the boys? Did she do it intentionally? Did she see somebody else do that, mimicking someone else? Or, as some people were saying in the chat, well, he left her in charge. So she knew his violent temper, and she didn't want the kids crying as so none of them would get in trouble. Is that true? We will never know because the child isn't here to tell us the truth. And then you can't believe everything from an addict and a child murderer, abuser. So many questions and no answers pertaining to this debacle. Smiling in court shows you the attitude of a baby killer. Crying mother, numb, devoid of emotion, maybe only crying for herself that she's in this situation and wishes she wasn't there. Why get this child to only abuse her? You have to ask that question. Picture of him getting arrested, which led to the jump off of this case and this trial. Why did he adopt her? Maybe at one point he felt empathy, some type of empathy, violent as he is. Is it possible that this one fluke of a chance, he felt bad for his child? Well, let me go to court. Because let's be truthful, he didn't have to go to court. Now, some would say, well, maybe he went for nefarious reasons, a way to just get extra money because he's a user, he's an addict, he never wanted to work, hold his own. Maybe he went so he could get money. Could be. I'm not here to argue. Could be. People do it all the time. People taking other people's children just to get a welfare check and food stamps for the children. Maybe this was a hustle. I'll get her, we'll get extra money. So what is the truth? Did this monster go to court to get his child as a means of a hustle? Make money? Possibly. Maybe that's all Harmony Montgomery was to these two individuals. A hustle, a means to an end. And then we learned that Kayla got pregnant with a girl child thereafter, disposing of the body of Harmony. None of it makes any sense because it's not supposed to make any sense. Why would it? Did he not like his girl child? I pose that question to you during this live. Why did he adopt her? Why did he start abusing her? Was the child acting out? Did he decide he no longer wanted her but knew he couldn't send her back to the mother? Because as I said, you hear him telling the detectives this during their interrogation of him and trying to find out where the child was. So many questions and no answers, and you don't have anyone you can ask the truth. You're just assuming, trying to put the pieces together. Why did he take in his child, custody of his child? Was it for monetary gain, or he really wanted to get his child because Crystal didn't make it to court? He also said, in that commentary to the detectives, I don't think she wanted the child. That's why I went to court to get her. And then you learn of her being in that foster care 3 times, the baby. You have to ask yourself that as well. I've also had commentary from people saying they didn't think the mother really wanted the baby. She didn't search for her like she said she did. Then you have the social worker testifying days ago that he tried to reach her, but it went to voicemail. And you never heard him say again how many times he reached out to the mother. See, open-ended. The state should have asked, well, sir, did you try calling her back? How many times did you try reaching Crystal? Were you about to close the case in January 2020? How many times did you actually visit from July 19 to January 2020? I didn't hear any of that. Of course, I've been getting bits and pieces of the case through, the court TV, but just in watching them testify and then watching the defense ask questions to the witnesses, I never got that. Now, you'll hear commentary in court TV of visits by the state, but I didn't hear that during testimony, and that's where I have the problem. That's why I'm trying to piece together. Why did he adopt the child? Nefarious reasons, monetary gain, or he really wanted to get the child so she wouldn't go into foster care again? Could it be that there was that one slither of a moment that Adam Montgomery had a human emotion, a genuine human emotion, or it was all for the money. I can grapple with that because we have seen this with abusers and killers, that they will care for something or someone or pretend to care anyway. And then over here in this corner, they're beating this person down, abusing them. But then a psychologist or psychiatrist will probably tell you it's still not genuine because they are a narcissist, sociopath, or a psychopath. And then the flip side is that a psychopath and a sociopath is not necessarily a murderer. But this one is. And I do believe he abused everyone. I don't know if there was difference of who he abused. I think whenever the mood hit him, he was mad, couldn't get high, didn't have no money, shit wasn't going his way, he'd lash out. Because in the end, those children were younger than her, meaning they were not potty trained. So what he was doing to her, beating her up because she used the restroom on herself in the car that fateful day, eventually those children would do the same. Because we learn that children have accidents in attempting to be potty trained or not potty trained. So they would emulate the same because they're human beings. And if you beat one child because they soiled themselves, you would do the same to your other children. So I believe these children could have met the same fate down the road, whether he had Harmony Montgomery in his custody or not. 3-part questions for this live stream. Did Kayla Montgomery abuse this girl child? Did she also abuse her children? Why didn't she leave? Why did she hold on to the very end? And I believe she did that to save herself when she got arrested. I think that's self-explanatory. She only told the truth when it benefited her own livelihood. Was there preferential treatment by Adam Montgomery towards the girl child? Did he come to despise the child for whatever reason? And it wasn't even about potty trained, soiling herself, her trying to smother a baby, covering his mouth. Maybe it's just he's an evil son of a something, and he popped off the handle when he felt like it. How will we ever know the truth? How will we ever know the truth? And why did he seek custody of this girl child? Pretty little girl. Eye trouble. Wasn't expected to live past 7 months, says the mother. Doctors told her that. Misdiagnosis. She also mentioned that in testimony. And also the foster mother said the same. The child was misdiagnosed. How terrible is that? These are the people who have testified in the past week. I will go over all that testimony in the next live stream. Baby girl gone at the hands of her own biological father, while the mother of the other children sat in the car, allegedly attempting once to raise her arm, but was defeated, so she says, and did nothing. Sat in the car, a cold car, while child died under covers, going to a restaurant, parking lots, different people's houses, shelter, then to their own apartment, riding the ride all the way until the very end. You have to admit, it's a strange, bizarre, and macabre story and actions from people who are supposed to be caring for a girl child and other children. It's unheard of. But we're hearing of late of people being around the deceased and living in the same house, as I brought you content pertaining to the young lady who died in a sofa, basically melted into a sofa, almost a 40-year-old woman who was in the care of 2 diabolical parents. And there's no way anyone can believe that you're talking about 2 mentally disturbed parents didn't know right from wrong when they were going about their way and living and traveling going to church, church members, and even having support from church members as I speak now. You see, when you hear of that type of behavior from strangers, pertaining to strangers who have done diabolical deeds, it shows you you don't know people. And that's what this case is about. No different than the case in Louisiana of that 36-year-old woman whose parents allowed her to die in her own fecal matter. You don't know people. And you'd be surprised to see what goes on behind closed doors. And that's what you have here with Harmony Montgomery. People taking her in, but not caring for her, loving her. People pretending to care, putting on a front, but they are devoid of emotion. They have no empathy. And one could say the same for Kayla. She had no empathy. Because how could you have empathy and allow yourself to watch this man abuse a girl child in front of you, your children, remain homeless, continue to use drugs, search for drugs, sell your food stamps to the dope dealer, get high, and then watch this man carry a dead child around? There's no way you can say you loved yourself, loved your children, and loved Harmony Montgomery. And you can't even say you loved him, because it's the same man that abused, I believe, the children, Harmony, you as well, and you rode this donkey ride until the very, very end and still claim it in court days ago. And that would lead us to believe that even if you got free tomorrow, you would possibly exact the same behavior again. And that's the scary part of the story, that this woman will possibly get freedom one day. And what choices will she make, Kayla Montgomery? Go back into the lion's den using drugs, living pillar to post, picking out bad boys, deviant boys, men rather, because she doesn't have any self-esteem about herself. And I've also questioned what type of mother did she have and how was she raised as a child. I'm questioning all of that now. How was Kayla Montgomery raised? You hear the mother or saw the mother after court, didn't want to speak to court TV. That's no shocker. And possibly, as they say, it could be used against Kayla down the road. So best the mother don't say anything. Did she abuse Harmony Montgomery or any of the other children? Why did Adam adopt the girl child? Did he do it in the beginning because he thought he cared, but realized it was too much work, an extra child? And did he choose to mistreat her deliberately for some reason? Didn't like the mother, mad at the mother, came to not like the child, or he's just an evil son of a bitch? Because you have to use deduction. Drug addict, abuser, beating up the mother, wife, beating up a kid. He would have done the same to the others. He would have done it to another girlfriend. I wondered about that as well. Did he beat that other girl he dated who's no longer alive? Is he just an evil monster that cared for no one, loved no one, no empathy? One would say yes. Those are my questions. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $McAngie 129 Cash App, stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. Follow me later with more commentary content pertaining to Adam Montgomery. The trial will resume on Tuesday. He is not appearing. That is his right not to. And I will bring you the latest updates pertaining to this debacle. Very interesting trial, very interesting information. Please check my community board for all said updates and polls. You have been listening to The Vault XL.